Taste and see that the Lord is good. We referenced those words last week as I talked about the idea that God has given us senses and we can use those to see how he is working in our lives. Last week we talked about that wonderful story of Elisha and his servant and how the servant's eyes were opened after Elisha's prayer to see God surrounding them and helping them in the midst of a very troubling time. And today I also want to talk about the sight that we can use to see God at glory. And one of the things that I really want you to focus on with me is the idea that sometimes we can lose focus. So we can start focusing and then we can lose focus, and this is where we need to get it back. So let me tell you a story about Peter. Some of you may know this story. It's a wonderful story. And the Gospels tell us the story of Peter doing something miraculous. Jesus is coming off of a break. He's coming off of a time away to pray and commune with his Father. The disciples are out on the Sea of Galilee, and Jesus decides to make the quick trip, and he is walking upon the water to greet his disciples and to encourage his disciples and reconnect with them as they go on to ministry. And so Jesus is coming, and Peter looks out and sees Jesus walking on the water. Now keep in mind, Jesus wasn't showing off. He wasn't doing this just for kicks. He was making something applicable, very practical. I'm going to do this, but also to show that he, as the maker of heavens and earth, has the ability to do things against nature. This is the mysterious nature of Jesus. This fascinates Peter to the point that he says, Jesus, let me come to you. And Jesus says, come on. Peter steps out of the boat and he walks. The rest of the story I'm going to get to in just a second, but let me pause right there. Sometimes we get to the second part of the story, which makes Peter look a little less than perfect, if you will. But this first part we need not to be passed over. Peter is looking into Jesus' eyes and says, Lord, let me come to you. And he comes. So he has vision. He has focus. He's not thinking about the boat. He's not thinking about his disciples. He's not thinking about the sea. He is thinking about Jesus. And he's able to do the impossible, humanly speaking, because he's looking at Jesus. So let's not forget that point. Now the rest of the story. He keeps his eyes looking on Jesus, but then the wind and the waves continue to do what winds and waves do. And Peter takes his eyes and focuses them on the wind and the waves. I'm thinking primarily the waves, rather than the face of Jesus. At this point, Peter begins to sink, and in God's grace and mercy, Jesus, instead of saying, oh, Peter, why'd you do this? He just rescues him, and then they have the conversation. Now notice what's happened in the story. You have Peter doing the humanly impossible because of the power of Jesus, and he walks out on water. And again, I think it's because he's focusing on Jesus. He is not doing a magic trick. He is doing what Jesus does because he has this complete faith, this complete focus on Jesus. And then he takes his eyes off of him and he begins to sink. I want to ask you, where are you in your journey with God right now? Are you part one of that story or part two of that story? If you're part one of that story, then your eyes are on Jesus and you are doing things that are you're only able to do them because of the power of Jesus. Maybe you're overcoming obstacles. Maybe you are forgiving those things that are very hard to forgive. Maybe you are enduring hardship. Maybe you are making a financial sacrifice. Whatever it may be, you are really on target. You are focusing on Jesus. Here is a good warning. That is, keep your eyes on Jesus. So any of these things I've mentioned, may it be working in a difficult financial situation or working through those difficult times of forgiveness, and you're doing it, there are going to be times when the tempter or just life itself are going to creep in and try to remove your focus from Jesus and make you focus back on that money or what you're missing out on, or focusing back on the pain that you've attempted to forgive. And what's going to happen is you're going to focus away from Jesus and you're going to begin to sink. You're going to be able to sink back in to the anxiety, sink back in to the bitterness, sink back in to the fear. And so keep your eyes on Jesus. Now, if you're already in part two of the story, you're already sinking, notice the mercy of Jesus. Jesus doesn't stand back and let him suck down some water first. He doesn't ridicule him. he saves him, he rescues him, and then he begins to talk to him and talk about how he could have done it better. And this is so important for us to realize, is Jesus is not going to condemn you. Jesus does not condemn. He's going to challenge you. He's going to call you to improve and repent prior to that, but he's also going to work with you and help you through this. So if you're already beginning to sink, or maybe you're over your head already, call out to God. Recognize the fact that you lost focus, and put your eyes back on Jesus. So keep this in mind. We may not get this picture right, so I want to paint it again. You have Peter's eyes on Jesus, and then he looks at the waves. Well, guess where he's looking again when he sinks? He's looking now at Jesus, and he's ignoring the waves. And so that's where you can start. Go back and just let go of those fears, let go of those anxieties, let go of those concerns of the world, and look to Jesus. Those things are still going to be there. The waves are still going to be there, but Jesus is going to be with you. So when it says, taste and see in Psalm 34 that the Lord is good, and it doesn't just mean seeing the things that are easy to see. It also means seeing Jesus in the midst of the difficult times. So I encourage you to do that in your everyday, ordinary life. We have lots of practice, lots of opportunities, because we've got lots of waves, and keep your eyes on Jesus. Again, whether you're in part 1 or part 2. Part 1, keep your eyes on him. Part 2, put your eyes back on him and taste and see that the Lord is good.